Big hire, big news of the week. And we're going to talk about the NFL Combine, that and a little bit more here on the Sooner or Later Sports Show. Thank y'all for pulling up. You know that's Coop. I'm Jay. Thanks for coming here on the YouTube channel and listening wherever podcasts are downloaded and listened to. While you're here, please wipe your feet, like, subscribe, rate, review, and give us those 5 stars. You don't think we deserve it? Go ahead and give us 5 anyway and gift it. So on today's episode of the Sooner or Later Sports Show, me and Coop's got some fun stuff to talk about today. We're going to dive into the Nagy hire. Got to get Coop's opinion on it because we haven't really got a chance to talk about it. We got to talk NFL Combine and how our guys have performed. They are showing up and showing out. And spring practice is this week. So we got to talk about the spring practice and who we hope to jump out and make the magic happen. So, Coop, happy Sunday, man. How are you doing today?
Hey, it's good to be back. It's good to be back, Jay. And, kind of excited. We have had a little hiatus, and so now we're back. So everybody who is in the chat already, thank you for joining us. And let's go. It's now we get to start talking about some of the fun stuff. Spring starts rolling around, and now the hopium starts to kind of hit really, really high.
Yeah, and we're definitely in the it's a rainy day, but we're starting to transition into better weather, right? It was 70 something degrees last week. It was beautiful. I got to finally wash my car and get all of the sand and dirt from the snow off of it. I got to really give it like a good washing. I gave it a rinse, but I got a good washing. So I got to do that, even though it didn't rain today. That kind of ruined that entire point. So I have to go rewash my car probably sometime tomorrow. But the good thing is we've got better weather. Shout out to our partners at BetUS. They're sponsoring today's live. They'll hook you up. 150% bonus on the first deposit of $2,000 by using promo code YouTube150. So, Coop, we didn't get your thoughts on the Nagy hire. I want to throw one thing out there really quick, that getting a general manager like him, where you get everybody and their mother from the media that, the who's out there talking about it, probably means you did a dang good job with your hire. Am I crazy to think that?
No, I mean, it's I just say this is a guy who, he could have gone into an NFL job and it'd have been a great get for them. He could have gone to another university, a great get for them. I like he's been around the Senior Bowl here for a while, and so getting a chance to see the talent, really, wanting to see more from, certain players. There's some judgment piece there. I think the relationships with the NFL agents, the relationships with agents, he's not going to. That's a meeting that if you are one of these representatives for a player and you walk in, you're behind the 8 ball immediately with Nagy in there, because he's talked with the best of the best. He's put together talent. He part of 6 Super Bowls and winning. He was on the winning staff for 4 of them between Seattle and New England. So I just think that you get so much from a talent evaluation standpoint. It's huge. From the capability to have conversations with the agents, it's pretty huge. Because the agents may come and say, hey, in the NFL, they're really, really putting a big pedigree on, small, quick defensive backs now to kind of combat some of these quicker receivers. Well, he kind of hears some of that stuff out front. And who do you go look for in the transfer portal? Some small, quick defensive backs who can, keep up with quick receivers. And so he's got some of those relationships too. So, I love it. I don't see anything that's a negative on this piece.
Yeah, no, it got me excited seeing just the way that everybody has been responding to it, and the responses has been good. It's been what you would hope for with someone getting the job here. You want the responses to be like overwhelmingly excited, and that's what it felt like in seeing all the responses we saw on social media. So, like, I'm going to get one of these pulled up because I kind of want to point out to one. I think that this feels like a big name person that if they're raving about it, you should be excited. Field Yates, right? You know, fantasy football, NFL analyst over there at ESPN. Love Field Yates, one of my favorite people to watch. But he chimed in about the hire. You also, you got stuff from just a whole bunch of people in the NFL space, analysts and everything. And you made a good point there. The one thing that I loved about the hire too of Nagy is not only the relationship he has with agents, but also with coaches and schools.
Yeah.
Because the thing that I look at here is with him being his general manager and being very versed in scouting, one of the key things he's going to have to really manage, and he'll manage this closely with Brent Venables, is the salary cap. Because you're going to have a cap. The cap tells you that there's going to have to be a tier of prices when it comes to players to have on the roster. And I think this is the one thing that a lot of fans probably don't get in the grand scheme of, you're not going to be able to have a team with 22 5-stars anymore. That's going to change. The price of the brick has gone up. People are going to charge more. Schools are going to blow their budgets on one dude if it's like an in-state guy to try to keep them there, because that helps bring in that revenue.
Yeah.
Nagy has experience scouting in G5 and FCS. So because of that, he can leverage those relationships to find dudes that we ain't ever heard of that could be potentially somebody that could come in and be a game breaker. Another Jared Verse type, a Khalil Mack type, right? I'm naming players that were at a lower level that blew up when someone said, hey, watch that dude. That's a dude you need to go get your hands on. I think that Nagy will be able to find some of those hidden gems to go on top of the standard chasing of the 5-stars. Like the 5-star chasing, you don't have to do much besides offer them money and provide them with the opportunity to play. That's the most important thing. The key thing is going to be him and Brent Venables working together on finding all the proper pieces to be able to be competitive in the SEC. And I know Nagy knows because he's watched SEC players. He's evaluated them. He has a good understanding of that component too.
Well, in kind of what you're saying is in the NFL, you can't just go out and, it's not a video game. You can't just go out and say, well, I want Patrick Mahomes and let's take Saquon Barkley. Go ahead and give me Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. You can't do that. You got to find some solid star power, and then you got to fill in, the smaller grains of sand around those bigger rocks, right?
Exactly.
In that analogy. So that's where this is going to be big because, I see somebody in the chat who made a comment that, all right, yeah, money still talks. Like, you're not going to be able to buy every single available player. And in a lot more cases than not, it seems that these big ticket players don't actually bring that much of a significant increase. I mean, we spent a lot of money on Don Williams, and, rightfully so. He solidified this defensive line, but, he was, sharing that top producer with, a freshman. And which is a guy who you paid for a little bit of good money too, and more this year. So you need to be able to go out and find a defensive end or another D tackle somewhere that is not looking around for a $1 million NIL deal, but a guy who's a little bit smaller, and you need to be able to get in there early. So he's going to have a lot of responsibility and onus on that one because. Again, you see it in the NFL with the quarterbacks making $40-50 million on a $260 million salary cap. I mean, right there, your 20% is gone with one player. Now you have 60 some odd other players to fill out the rest of that, and you don't do it right, and you end up in a situation right now like the Dallas Cowboys, who cannot spend anything. They got to sign Micah Parsons, who's going to demand a really, really healthy
A lot of
contract.
money.
They just signed, Dak. They gave the extension to Zeke, a while back. Now brought him on the horse is dead, by the way. Horse is dead. You got to fill yourself in with some players who doesn't have the spotlight of the entire nation and be able to bring a guy in, like Texas did with Matthew Golden. That was a solid bring in, and he's doing a good job at the combine right now.
Oh yeah, Golden is cooking, man. And I can't even be mad. Like hating is not something I can do even outside the club. But we'll talk about our guys in a second because the numbers are out and they look amazing. But on the Nagy piece, though, you make a solid point on filling up the hole that the Rock is in with the sand around it. And I really hope that fans catch that part. It ain't sunshine pumping. It's just the fact that this dude has done it. Like this, he's one of the guys that, the Reese's Senior Bowl has grown dramatically in the 8 years that he's been there. I only watched it when he got the job. When I heard about it, okay, check it out. And then I started watching the videos he would post on social media. Granted, he's actually really good at the social media thing, just FYI. One thing I suck at. One of these days, I'm going to get better at social media. One day I'm going to try. Correction, one day I'm going to try to be better. I think I can. I just got to try it. I don't really have that much interest, but I digress. He's really good at it because you'll see him he'll post videos of players. He'll talk about them and their ability, and it's impressive when I see him. I'm like, okay. Now, he's not perfect. He's not going to bat 1,000. It's impossible to bat 1,000 in picking a player that you think would be good. But he's going to do a good job, and as Thunder OU Sooner has pointed out, he'll be really good at evaluating the talent. That's what's most important. He'll be able to evaluate recruits better. Now the question's going to be here is, Coop. I'm curious to see how he builds his staff of people around him that's going to help with those evaluations when it comes to the high school level. That's where my questions come in on Nagy because he's done the college side. So he's got the college tape. He's watched them at the second level, up until they get to the highest level. He's got them in that middle level, and he's watched them there. How does his evaluations go at the high school level when talent is a lot more raw? That's where we're going to have our questions.
And I really, really think that, Coach Dent here just chimed in. And
that's a very good point, Coach.
Some great, Coach Dent works with one of the bowl games too, and so the Senior Bowl has kind of become the bell cow or the template. So, but yeah, you're going to have the high school talent there too. The one thing that I'd be remiss at saying is also the level of agent that you come across in the NFL is nothing that you're going to come across with some of these high school kids and some of these transfer portal guys. You're going to have less experienced. Even if they're in these agencies and been doing them for a year and a half or whatever, there's going to be a little bit of a transition and an adjustment there because some of these people they're not trained. They're literally just. They said, hey, I think that I can kind of navigate this with you and help you out a lot. So he's going to have to be able to, kind of feel that out is, do I have an actual legitimate agent that I'm having a conversation with, or do I have some dude's uncle who decided that, he was going to be the best contact? But yeah, it's another thing is I think that, the relationship that he has with the coaches in college football from the Senior Bowl, but then also, a lot of these, when you're a high school coach, like a lot of these high school coaches will stick in there too and follow the careers of some of their kids in college. And so when they show up to the Senior Bowl to support, a guy that they coached a couple years back, guess who was probably there having conversations with a lot of those coaches, so he's going to develop that. Plus, I think that
trainers
in a business to where, I guess the entire world is this way, but in a business where it's a lot about who you know too. A lot of these high school coaches are going to want to know him. Because of his connections and what he might be able to do. And even if it's not that, they sure as hell don't want to get on his bad side and develop some shenanigans with him, because the last thing you want is for him to think ill of you.
Oh, there's so many levels to how this could play out for the Sooners. And so I have no complaints about it. Like I said, I thought it was a grand slam hire as well. I mean, I lost my mind when I saw it. I dropped a little video on it, just initial reaction. But as I thought about it more, talked about it with John on Locked On Sooners, and really diving into it with you all, Nagy has those nationwide connections that's really going to help. The good thing is with the coaching staff we've already got the local connections. I mean, we've got connections in California. I mean, we've got recruits in California. We've got the Texas connection, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia. We've got them all across Florida. We've got the connections in that capacity, but he extends that, especially with guys that, like the trainers, the people that train the players in preparation for drafts, people that prep and help with like pro days.
Yeah.
Those relationships are probably going to be leveraged heavily in order to be able to build out the roster properly. Or, if anything, find out little nuggets about players and stuff to determine if it makes sense to go after them. It's funny. Back in my former life, when I worked in the minors, in minor league basketball, there was a team that had a staff member, the owner of the minor league team, which was an NBA franchise. They had a dude whose job was specifically only to find out drama about guys. Like, that's literally all he did. And he was that good at it that, of course, one, they paid him handsomely. And two, his job was, as a quote unquote advanced scout, was finding out if this dude was a knucklehead or not. And if it made sense to draft him, put him in the roster, sign him, all of that, which was always a fascinating concept. But that's what people are like. Some people have staff members like that that's here to find all of those nationwide people. And the good thing about Nagy is he's going to have all the plugs and connections about the ins and outs about players and, heck, maybe even coaches. Now, I know that for him, it's mainly roster construction, salary cap, scouting, and all of that stuff is really not hiring staff members. As contrary to the popular belief, he's more the GM of the roster, less the GM of the coaching staff. That's still on BV all the way up to Joe Castiglione. But I think he'll have some solid input as, coaches begin to look at opportunities. Like, I know Jay Valai wants to be a defensive coordinator somewhere. I know he wants to be a DC. I've been hearing those rumbles since he got here, right? The coming here was to help groom him into being a defensive coordinator. And I know that, some coaches are looking for that. And so at some point, you're going to have to replace jobs. It is what it is. That's the beauty. If you're good enough, then you're going to be replacing people to bring in because they got promotions and stuff. So
yep.
I like the hire. I'm happy about it. Final thoughts?
No, there's a lot. Now, from all I can understand, and so I'll just for those of you who are still not ready for positive thinking yet, he will not complete one single pass. He will not take one handoff. He won't make one tackle. But what it is, this, like we kind of covered from the get-go, is, then when this ends up as the, one of the top little links on ESPN.com, and you get this notification from a lot of different media agencies. This was a big hire. It was a big hire, and it continues to, evolving and ever-changing, atmosphere around NIL and paying the players. And so it's one to where, I think that we're kind of leader in the clubhouse with the GM hire.
Yep. Obviously, he done something right. If you're the headline on every single site, like I saw it on Yahoo, I saw it on Fox Sports, I saw it on ESPN, right? I saw it on CBS. Every single major sports news outlet, the main story was Nagy leaving the Reese's Senior Bowl to come to Oklahoma. And it's funny, I was listening to the Oklahoma Breakdown. Go check them out. Gabe and Teddy talked about it extensively. And Gabe talked about how he talked to Nagy before. Nagy never didn't confirm nor deny, but he was just like, hey, we would love to have you.
He was my first pick, and then when he read it, I guess he went back after. So yeah, it's a good listen to. The list is at the in the weeds. In the weeds one is the one where they really break down a lot of that stuff. So, but it's good. Like I said, we've had the big transition. From Curtis Lofton coming in and being the first person to this, and so it's again next year. There'll be a lot of difference. He's had the experience in the NFL. He's been there. If somebody wants to come get him, that means he's been doing a good job here, and they're going to have to pay a good amount of money because I think that this is his way to kind of leave a new mark and to really take it to a different level.
Exactly. All right, let's talk combine first. I got to pay some bills. Drop this ad real quick. Shout out to our partners over there at BetUS. They're hooking up the gamer. 150% bonus on your first deposit of $2,000. 125% bonus on your second and thirds by using promo code YouTube150. And NBA action's going on right now. So if you want to get in and get your bets in, you can do that. They also got their casino running with table games as well as like blackjack, craps, and slots. But also, you're looking at the futures and stuff for college football. We've talked about how Oklahoma's up there in the Heisman race with John Mateer. They're also got decent odds for the national championship, sitting at plus 6,500. Not bad. So if you want to get on the action like I did, check out BetUS. 150% bonus on the first deposit of $2,000 and 125% bonus on your second and thirds up to $2,000 by using promo code YouTube150. BetUS, where the game begins. Time to start talking a little bit about combine. You saw the combine numbers, Coop. Let me ask you this first. We know Schmitty did some work, and we saw. I think there's a leader from Oklahoma that in the bench that we's like, wow, for real, this is what we doing. But who jumped out to you the most out of our guys there at the combine?
I would say with three guys, and we can get into that, if you want to. But with your three kind of headline leaders, from this past year, they made big news last year coming in and saying, "Hey, we're sticking around for one more year. Let's run this thing back." You expected some good numbers. The thing that was most surprising to me was Stutzman's running. That was pretty good. I mean, was he the third fastest? Oh, there you go. He's the third fastest, and again, there's a lot of the straight line speed questions around Stutzman. He ran faster than Ollie Gordon. So if you saw that, I think Ollie Gordon ran like a 4.6. So there's crazy. There's that. But this was a pretty good deal. I think all three of the guys made themselves some money. The narrative around Billy Bowman, the athleticism is there, and he's a ball hawk and a great center fielder. The knock was going to be, the speed. Does he have an actual, decent speed? And he had good speed too, but he showed, amazing, change of direction in his hips in some of the combine drills. So, he get himself a good time too.
Yeah, let's start here with Stutzman, though, as you pointed out. Him outdoing Ollie Gordon. But that probably wasn't a good run for Ollie. I bet you he does a really good one at the pro day, and it's why some people didn't really participate in a lot of this stuff. But Stutzman running a 4.52, that put a big smile on my face. I was hoping that he would give us something that good. That's amazing work by him. Period. Like I can't even. I don't even know what to say. Like I was like, dang, 4.52. That's pretty darn good, man. That's pretty good. And then of course his 10-yard split at 1.55. Mm-hmm. This to me made that man some money. Like that may actually move him up, in the draft because like the big thing with him was. A lot of people were wondering just how fast he really was. Yeah. If he'd be able to do it. And he gave you that. We knew he was strong. We know he's a good downhill run stopper. The question was his capabilities of keeping up with people in the flats and all of that. Those numbers to me, big. Next one, though, you're right.
And before
Billy.
you move on, I do want to say this is that linebacker class is not a great class. So I think that what this really did for Stutzman was you've got a guy who I think a lot of teams probably had him slated in a certain area that's probably into the third, fourth round type of thing. And then you see some of these numbers and you go, if this is one that gets him slid into somewhere a little bit higher than he's probably was going to go. Danny Stutzman is, he is just what he meant to this university is crazy. And so to see this, which was good because I was a little nervous that, maybe some of the numbers weren't going to be there. And, it's that's kind of the end of the Danny Stutzman legacy. But, faith in my guy, he is, he made himself some money.
He did. And then from there, talked about Billy. We'll talk about Ethan first, though. I think Downs has definitely jumped.
Very much.
Jumped in the draft. Like, he definitely made himself some money. 32 on the bench reps. If I'm correct, that was tops. That's tops on the defensive line. And I remember seeing his score was his overall score. I think it's I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head right now. But he's ranked, his score-wise, as far as all his measurables and everything, he's top 100 of all defensive edges drafted in the last 25 years. Actually, 30 years. I think it's 87 is when they started really the calculations on it. And when I saw that, I'm like, there's no way. There's absolutely no way.
Yeah.
I am so impressed. Here it is. Let me pull this up.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, his numbers are... Yeah, it was... Let me see if I can pull the actual number piece up. It says that he was ranked 93rd out of 1,802 defensive ends from 97 to 2025.
That's not bad.
Not bad at all. Not bad at all. The relative athletic score, that's a pretty darn good score. Now all you got to do is go out there and just compete.
And that's what he does. It seemed like Ethan only made flashy plays when you need momentum shift, from somebody. And when it was a high stakes game, and that's kind of when he, had one of those moments where he popped. You're always going to have him standing over Quinn. As one of the iconic moments that he showed. And so I got you got to feel that this guy gets on a roster and he's just one of those guys that you ask him to do pretty much anything. I'm pretty sure that at some point if somebody walked over him and said, "Ethan, how would you like to play a little goal line fullback?" and he would be like, "Yep, let's do it.
Let's go."
And also, I think he's probably also going to be a guy that's going to play on some special teams, early in the career. And how would you like to see big ol' Ethan Downs coming down to tackle you after you weren't sure if you wanted to take the kickoff? So, he did himself some good right there, and that just shows that he does belong in the NFL.
Let's talk about this, though. This dude's 40 time was a 4.7. He's 269 pounds. That's kind of scary for someone that big to be running at you full speed. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
And he can do that. And his 10-yard split at 1.62 means that in a 10-yard run, that's the first split, he accelerates pretty well, which is at the high range. Yeah, that's terrifying to have a dude that big run that fast. That was what jumped out to me about that number. And then he comes in and he leads all defensive linemen, similar to Isaiah Coe did in the bench press. That just tells you what Schmitty's building. That's Schmitty built right there.
And like I said, this is you mentioned the speed. Early in his career, he's probably gonna be playing some special teams, and that's going to be the only time that he'll get to use that speed. But that quickness, the strength, he's just that's somebody you're going to want to get in. And once he just thinks football and that's it,
Mm-hmm.
he's going to be one of those guys who just kind of sticks around, and you just hear his name every year as a player that's a Sooner that is on another active roster spot.
Yep. And then, of course, you got to talk about Billy, 4.42, 1.52 split, 35-inch vertical in a 10'3" broad jump. I think the big thing with Billy is not only is that number, the 40 was kind of what I expected out of him, being the normal insaneness about him as a ball hawk, but that Luther Burden play against Missouri is probably the one play that I hear a ton of scouts and draft analysts talk about the most. All of them still rave about that play like that's just ridiculous that he did that. Like he cut that right angle and then he clocked the dude. That is like the one everybody's like, yeah, Billy's somebody. And he looked good.
And you go to the film and it shows that he can play around the line of scrimmage also. If he plays, he's going to probably be he's probably going to have some, early in the career to where he comes on and maybe is a third safety or a nickelback type of a situation. I think that's going to be what he's going to is really going to see. And he could turn into one of those guys who just in the NFL is somebody that is, is a pain in the butt for you to throw out, your slot receiver. And, he's going to fight through blocks. And, again, you turn it to where he's doing football only. And, who knows what he can turn into.
Yep. There's one name that I kept hearing. That he could end up being that the comparisons have come out for. And if he does it, hell yeah, I'm here for it. Antoine Winfield Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Safety, Tampa Bay. That is who they believe Billy Bowman could be. And I 100% agree. I think he has the capabilities of being him. Winfield ran the secondary for Tampa Bay, and he was one player I missed when he got hurt for my Bucks. And if Billy turns out to be that, yeah, that's huge. And he's gonna get some nice contracts. So give me some of that, because Winfield's what, 5'9"? Yeah, he's listed as 5'9", 203. Yeah, that's a fair number. And if Billy can end up top 60 in the draft, which I think he can actually end up as a day 2 guy after that performance, yeah, we cooking. And that's what you need. Oklahoma needs more of these guys drafted like this. Keep the consistency going. We keep the consistency going, it'll continue to attract the talent, which we've done well on. Now we just need to figure out how to get Stutzman to slide to the first round to make it 3 years in a row. That'd be awesome.
Well, it's all it does is take one team, but I feel like this draft is going to be odd, and I think that's going to be tough to kind of pick. There's 30 some odd running backs in this draft that are seen as draftable. You've got a pretty weak quarterback class. Just there's not really the I guess the generational type of a guy. There's no Caleb Williams in here this draft. They're trying to figure out who's the number 3 guy, and I don't know what the stats are around quarterbacks getting drafted in the first round, but there's always one that slides in that you're like, oh, that's not gonna go like they expect. But I feel this way is Danny. If somebody fell in love with him, there's a chance. I think with some of those numbers, but again, I would be pretty happy if he landed in the top 60.
Question is, where do you think he ends up?
I don't know. The draft needs well enough to do that. I feel that maybe he's probably going to go somewhere to where you're needing to move on from an older linebacker, or maybe you're replacing and you can bring in somebody from free agency who's maybe going to give you 8 games, and then kind of get Danny ready. That type of situation. Hopefully he gets to go to a team that has a need for a linebacker and is going to be making a playoff push. So I have no clue where he ends up, but he reminds me of your old school. And we talked about these 2 teams earlier, but a Seahawks or a Patriots or a Panthers type of a linebacker.
Andy Katzenmoyer type.
Yeah, that's
a name.
Yeah.
That boy.
He's not as fast as Kuechly, but he's still kind of that instinctive. I think the Kuechly had Thomas Davis, on the other side of him, who was the more athletic guy. So that was always a great pairing of linebackers. So hopefully he just goes somewhere where they've got a little bit of a freak on standing next to him.
I'm hoping he ends up. Look, I just want to get more people in my Buccaneers, and we could use another linebacker. Can we just go find a way to get Stutzman? Just I need my Buccaneers to load up on some more Sooners. Keep that going, because Baker seems to perform well with that, and our defense was so bad last year. We need some young bloods.
Pretty terrible.
It was pretty awful. It was pretty awful. So we'll see how that goes. The draft's gonna be fun, but let's talk spring game. Shout out to our partners over there at BetUS. They will hook you up. 150% bonus on the first deposit up to $2,000 by using promo code YouTube150. Coop. Spring practice this week. I think it's Wednesday that the press conference is going to go down. Coach, players, and you'll have like all of the beats writers and everything there getting their interviews in. I have no way of going down there for it. Unfortunately, my day job, I'm going to be busy on Wednesday, so I won't be able to skip away. But it's going to be some good stuff. I wanted to ask you, Coop, first before we do that. Ben, appreciate you always being in the comments, talking noise, but also, being fair and having fun. $10, thank you so much. Speaking of the draft, before we jump to the next one, who goes number 1, and will Quinn succeed for that team? Look, funny. No, I don't think. Of course, I don't see Quinn going number 1, which I appreciate that the funness of the joke. I know Ben doesn't believe that either, but I think Quinn will be, if Quinn goes to the right team. Here's the thing I've always thought about quarterbacks in NFL. It's a combination of their talent and the coaches around them. The coach is going to make them successful. The greats in the NFL will still be successful regardless of how garbage the coaching staff is. And they'll still be able to ascend. But at the same time, that doesn't mean they're going to win games. It just means that they'll still be able to overcome terribleness at coaching. Then you've also got those that are really good coaches like a Kyle Shanahan, a Sean McVay, who can take any quarterback and make anything happen as long as the quarterback follows their rules. And I do think that Quinn can ad-lib enough to be better than some quarterbacks who are built to follow scripts specifically, like a Jimmy Garoppolo or something. But it's going to be determined by who's coaching him and how much he works. Like, I think Josh Allen is the first player in NFL history to humble himself enough to realize that he sucked, that he needed to change his passing motion and his thought process, and he completely changed from the first 2 years of his career. Like first 2 years of his career, he's giving the ball away. Second, the after that, you saw a dramatic change in his just what he does now. He has a tendency of trying to get the ball away, but he looks like he's under control. Most players can't do that. Most players can't humble themselves to realize, you know what? I am boo-boo. I probably need to change the way that I'm doing stuff. It's so rare to find players like that. That's why I always commended Josh Allen because he did that. Coop, what do you think about Quinn? Do you think Quinn can succeed in the NFL?
No, I think the D tackle for Penn State is it Carter, Abdul Carter. I think
Abdul Carter, yeah. Even with the knee injury or ankle injury or whatever the heck injury he got.
Yeah. I think he still goes number one. But here's what Quinn has the chance of being. I think Quinn's ceiling is a. Oh goodness gracious! And now I'm forgetting the kid's name. He played wide receiver at A&M and then switched to
Ryan Tannehill.
I think
that's actually not a bad. That's a decent comp. Tannehill's huge, but that wouldn't be a bad career.
He's that's I think his ceiling. Where I think he's most likely slated is probably something like a Mason Rudolph. He's going to be a guy who. Chase Daniel, Mason Rudolph, a guy who gets on is always going to be on a roster, because he does have the arm talent. I think that Quinn needs to have weapons around him. So wherever he goes, Quinn might be a guy who, if you maybe should be starting to think about a quarterback, you've got a guy who is, maybe 3-4 years away from being done. Maybe Quinn's a guy that you can bring on and, just slowly, kind of bring up to speed. Maybe he's a guy who, if you don't have a backup and you've got a younger quarterback, maybe he's somebody that you can, kind of test the waters with, draft in, the third, fourth round and see what's going to happen there. But, I think that Quinn would need to go to a place that he's got a good amount of, a decent offensive line, maybe running game, and some good wide receivers.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I don't think he'll get the Vince Young drafted in the top 5. But honestly, I mean, if he ends up being Chase Daniels, that's a pretty darn good career. Like, I don't think people understand.
Made a lot of money.
Make a lot of money being a backup quarterback and just being consistently available and still studying football. Get yourself better prepared for coaching. Yeah, give me that job. If I could just study football for a living and never really get hit, probably would do that in a heartbeat. So Chase Daniels is probably a good comp for him. He probably could be a career backup that comes in and does some stuff. Maybe Nick Foles, maybe.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
I could totally see that, but I don't think he'd be. I don't think he's going to be horrible in the NFL. I think he's smart enough or humbled enough to where he'll go in there and he'll actually try to improve on the things that held him back. But I will say, like Tannehill, I don't think he can win you enough games to go far enough. The team around him is going to be what matters the most. So
yeah, and I think another thing for Quinn is I think that most guys like him who, he was one of the first big NIL guys. He had the hoopla around himself by, skipping the year, enrolling early, reclassifying, going to Ohio State, having, $1 million some odd dollar deal before he ever even arrived on campus. And then, he went to Texas. He staved off, the Arch Manning stuff, this entire year. I would say that usually a guy like that would not have the mentality to go to a place and learn to kind of do what you were saying is, reinvent and really establish who you are. And I think he does have the mentality to do it. So he's a good kid. I wish him the best.
Same. I'm pretty excited to see, honestly, and before we jump into spring ball, I'm excited about our pro day. I think we've got some players that's going to have an opportunity to really get some of the scouts' attention. Like, Cole, with the bench press was ridiculous. You had, let me see who else showed out in that. Like, you had a few people, but I think that this year with Dejon Terry and Caden Wooler, Trace forward, I think a lot of those guys are really going to be able to get a chance to show out at Pro Day and really get some attention. Michael Tarkin should have an opportunity to do the same, since we really didn't have any we didn't have very many older offensive linemen that's been under, Bill Beatonbow for more than a year. So there's going to be some guys that are going to get a chance to really show what Schmitty and show how much work they've done with Schmitty. Pro Day, I'm pretty excited talking about. So, all right, spring ball. The homie Ben asked the question, and I think I like this question a lot. I'm going to pull this up real quick. It was right before he tossed us the $10. So, Ben, we appreciate that. But he asked this question. What's the word on Mateer? Believe me, when I say the words coming out is that it dude's good. The rumors coming out is he's a leader. And players are gravitating to him. Also hearing that Michael Hawkins is looking better after his cleanup surgery, and he's out there doing some stuff too. Let's put it this way. The difference in reports I heard between the last quarterback and Mateer, complete night and day.
Yeah.
Like, I heard that the defense was giving like Jackson Arnold hell. But at the same time, true, he was a true sophomore, still figuring it out, expected. Tier's a little different. Now I'm ready to see what spring practice looks like when he's going up against this talent. If he's going to be out there really, if he can slice and dice, that's going to be the question, if anything. But in workouts and passes and training with the wide receivers, Coop, everything that I'm hearing about John Mateer is nothing but positive. Everyone loves that. Everyone likes that dude. They're like, yeah, there's a different energy when he walks in, and you can tell that people gravitate to him, and that's really what you want.
He's a guy that he knows that his play defines him. He wasn't extremely heralded, and so I got to show up. He's got social media too, and I promise you, he's read. Yeah, but can't do it in the SEC? He did it, out in the Mountain West or whatever, and it was crap, and all that stuff. It's going to be a chip on the shoulder situation for Mateer too, and. He's going to have this spring. I will say this: if we end up having a spring game, which we can chat about that too.
Yeah, we'll close out on that.
If we end up having a spring game, you're not going to see a lot from anything. That's just it. We've gone from I don't want people to know what kind of schemes we're running to I don't want people poaching our backups, our depth, and so. You see a kid who looks really good. What he was, coming out of high school, and you see him running in second or third. Well, guess what? Somebody's going to have a reach out moment with him. Not to say that folks would tamper or anything, but that's going to happen. We can play Michigan week 2, so just always watch out for that too.
Yeah, Connor Stallion may be out there working.
But no, he is going to come out and he is going to, he knows this offense. He's educating and coaching just as much as Arbuckles, can whenever he can. But that's going to be it. The bullets start flying, in the spring practices, though. That's going to be a little bit different because this defense also wants to, establish that they are who they are. And so they're not going to welcome in John Mateer and say, "Hey, go ahead and carve us up. We want you to feel good about yourself." They're going to try to shut him down too.
Oh yeah, they're going to throw the kitchen sink at him, which I want, especially if with what we've seen him be able to do. He won the Apple Cup against Washington, who plays in the Big Ten, and who had some pretty big wins last season. Didn't they beat Michigan? I just want to beat Michigan and USC. They had some pretty big wins last year. Let me see. me see what their schedule looked like last year. I could have sworn they won some games that you're just like, oh. No, so that's the women's basketball. I want football.
Yeah, I mean, Washington wasn't, national championship game, good last year, but they were, they were still a solid Big Ten team.
Yeah, they were solid. Yeah, they beat Michigan. They beat USC at the crib. They did lose Washington State and Material in them. They beat UCLA. It was first year for Jed Fish, but he figured some stuff out. So I think it's gonna be. I think that he'll be fine over here. Like we've seen people transfer in from like the Big 12 and other conferences and show up and show out. Like let's not pretend like this has never been done in the SEC. I mean, snap, Jackson Dart 3 years, really good, and he was not very good at USC. It just happens. But Mateer put up numbers. We should be able to see that. So I can't wait to see him too. Like I'm pretty excited to see that. Mike, good to see that you're healthy again. I know you've been fighting the cooties like a lot of us. Question is around the O-line. How's our O-line going to look this year? So I've been working on a depth chart. And of course, we'll probably talk deeper into that once spring practices hit. But when I'm looking at like returning production and the depth chart, I think that the offensive line will be fine this year, mainly because we're bringing back actual production, something that we have not done. We didn't do last year. Last year, most of your offensive line was young besides Troy Everett. You brought in a transfer for Bichiwewu, who was also young, and you're playing Jake Sexton, who came off a couple of injuries. Taylor hadn't started. Logan Howland hadn't really played. Heath Ozida hadn't really played. So you were playing a whole bunch of dudes that hadn't really played. Only thing you really had was Gary Hatchett and Troy Everett and Branson Hickman. Hickman comes in. He gets hurt. You go through, and then Gary Hatchett has to play center. So as I'm going through the line of everything, you dealt with a ton of injuries.
Yeah.
Now, in that case, a lot of those dudes are back. I think Waywu's going to be a hell of a lot better than he was last year, and he played the entire season. Like, he had a lot of ups and downs, but you could tell that it was, hey, I'm a redshirt sophomore, and I'm trying to learn, a new way of playing at the next level. He's going to be stronger. He'll be good to go. I think EPL is going to be pushing for a lot of time. He may end up starting. I heard Derek Simmons, the transfer that came in from was it West Carolina? Western Carolina? Western Carolina. Heard that he's good. Heard that he's surprising a lot of people with his ability to push stuff around. Isaiah Truden, of course. Heard great reviews about him. Your tackles are gonna be fun this year, Coop. Because I've got 6 combinations of 2 deeps to three deep that you can really go to. I mean, technically you go 4 deep, but I mean Jacob and Jake tackles. You've got Derek Simmons and Isaiah Trudent. You've got Logan Howland that could run out there. You still got Michael Fasusi as well as Ryan Fogier as true freshmen, and they're both here. Goal line's going to be a hell of a lot better than it was last year. Like, that's the expectation. Like, last year, I had said this. The line is young, and your quarterback is young. The thing that should save us in a lot of situations is having veteran wide receivers to help the quarterback get rid of the ball faster. Well, we didn't have that either. So it exactly fell apart where I thought it was.
Yeah.
I don't think that scenario's here today. Veteran quarterback, I think the line's going to be a hell of a lot more improved. They're prepared. They pushed around with LSU. They pushed around with Alabama. They pushed around with Auburn. Right? They know. They know what it's like playing the SEC. And I think the wide receiver room, you can mix and match. We've seen schools bring in 4 or 5 wide receivers and still dominate. So I think the line's going to be good. What you think, Coop?
Yeah, I mean, you've got an influx of talent. You've got a couple of portal guys. It's going to be finding the best 5. And, you brought up Fabichuewu. Like, last year he also had, someone next to him was different almost every single game. He just every single time he ran out there, it was all right. So this guy does what, and you had, some new players with Ozida and, guys like Logan Howland out there. So, hearing great things
Barring
about,
injuries.
yeah. We thought the same thing. I'm going to think the same thing going this year as I thought last year. Is the offensive line is going to be a super talented young offensive line. Now, they're a little bit more battle tested this year, and that is kind of the big difference for me. Is Logan Howland got himself abused. He know what it's like to have a bad play and then follow up with a bad play and then follow up with a bad play. And so now you've got a good amount of guys out there. Hopefully you can, going into this second year in the SEC, hopefully we can get that offensive line, pretty much hammered out pretty quickly. I do think Michigan being Michigan, their offense was just as bad as ours last year. So, you're going to have a defensive battle there. They lose a ton on defense. They lose, I think, 3 first-round guys on defense. So you got to think that, the offensive line is going to get a good test, in week 2. Doesn't matter who Michigan lost. It's much better than throwing out a Temple, who we're also going to play, and Kent State. And so the offensive line needs to really have their crap together, by Texas.
Yeah, and I like the fact that we have 6 dudes. We got actually 8 dudes if you really do the math behind it that can play. I mean, with Buklinko as well as Derek Simmons, your 2 transfers in, but Fasusi Fogier is your freshman. So you got 4 people that are new. And then you got Jay Coop, Isaiah Autry-Dent, and Logan Howland. So Howland had some good moments, some bads. We all knew he was a project, right? He's a convert from tight end. But he's got the weight, he's getting the strength. He's got to get better. Autry-Dent needs to learn the playbook and get better. He was hurt a little bit. I think he had a toe thing too. I remember Pop sent me a picture, and that hurt my feelings on the kiddo. But he improves. Like I said, barring injury, this offensive line should be completely different. And I'm ready to hear about the wide receivers. I think that's the one thing from give me from spring practice. What's the thing you want to hear about? From me, it's 100% the wide receiver room. I want to hear about who's the ones that's going to jump out in the passes out there. The wide receiver room, and then, of course, our DB room. Who's going to be the DBs that we're raving about in that secondary? That's really what I'm not concerned about the linebacker room, defensive line. I want to know what the secondary is talking about. I want to know what the wide receiver room talking about. Because the good thing is, too, Coop, we're bringing back all of our running backs again as well.
Yeah.
And we just add Torrey Blaylock, who's going to be good. He should be really good. Like, I think he should be a upgraded version of Caleb Hicks.
Well, I mean, upgrade from 0 is still 0, but I think he's an upgrade.
I'm going off high school potential. Like, Caleb was pretty solid high school. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that he is a more explosive X-Rob. Bigger, more of a straight line speed type of guy. But no, I'm with you on the wide receivers. I mean, that's going to be it. Is one of the big separations last year was when the offensive line did hold up, which was quite often. Our wide receivers couldn't get open. Well, you've got Jaden Gibson comes back from injury. I still think that he is going to be a guy who you see get bigger and better as the season goes on, as he kind of gets his legs back underneath him. So early, you're going to need a Deion Burks to go out there and do a good job. You need a younger guy to step up, whether it's Carry-On or Zion Kearney. But the transfers, those, that's who we're going to want to see. We're going to want to see the transfers. What are they going to look at? Javonte Gibson, hearing that he is a big target. Like, he is a weapon. And so that's good. You're hearing a lot of stuff about Elijah Thomas. Elijah Thomas already turning a lot of heads, the freshman wide receiver. And I've heard all the comps on ET, and a lot of people compare him with those famous, those big famous guys like Ryan Broyles and Joaquin Iglesias. That's the low end of stuff. Throwing out a Sterling Shepard type of comp. So he
Right.
is going to be a guy that is going to. I think that he's going to see some time this year, and so it's how do the wide receivers take advantage of the opportunities given them? Because that's another thing that we were absolutely horrid last year is when the freshmen had a chance. There were drops. There were bad routes. There were, and it's not just like the wrong route. It is if you're supposed to run 8 yards and then break out, and you run 6 yards and break out. That's not good. That's bad because if the quarterback's throwing to a point, it's going to be over the top of the guy's head. You're going to be short of a first down. So it's going to be. That's a big thing for me is the running out of the wide receivers. Is who realizes that this is the number one slot is open.
Yep, and you can't do that. You can't expect a bunch of true freshmen to figure it out for you. And then, unfortunately, they didn't have they didn't have the veterans to really help out. You lose most of them to injury. So,
yeah,
tough, man. But, hey, all that matters now is we're moving forward. Shout out to our partners over there at BetUS. 150% bonus on your first deposit, $2,000 by using promo code YouTube150Coop. Last thing, spring game. You made mention of this, and I know that this has been a conversation that everybody's wondering. Texas just canceled theirs. Nebraska canceled theirs. There's a few others that have canceled their spring games, and the question people are asked is Oklahoma going to be following suit, which a lot of schools probably will. I don't see Oklahoma following suit and canceling their spring game. But you kind of alluded to it earlier. I do think that there is an adjustment type when it comes to the way the spring practice is ran, and it being an event for everybody. The problem is that as long as it's not televised, I think you should go ahead and go with it. If you don't televise, you're fine, and that's kind of where that poaching and the tampering piece comes in, because that was actually what Matt Rule was saying, which I get. Now, at the same time, I get the pushback of you must have a really terrible culture if that's your biggest concern. But we're in a new era of college football, man. Agents hitting up parents all the time. You can't, there's nothing, and they're offering stuff that you can't sneeze at. Like none of us would do that with our day job if we got a call from somebody else that, hey,
I got twice as much. You can come over here. What other demands would you have? Well, sure. I would like to work 25 hours a week instead of 45.
Exactly.
50 hours a week.
I'll take it.
Sure, fine. That's fine. Yeah.
You're going to get that.
We'd all do the same thing. And I love my job. But let's just be honest. I mean, I know that if my boss walked in and said, we really like you to stay, and, I can give you a little bit of a bump, but we can't double your pay. And we
can't give you more responsibility because we've got this person right in front of you that we still feel like it's a little bit better than the way that you present it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you also have, this may be you're getting back into spring ball for the first time since, the December. And haven't been yelled at in a while. All you've heard is, NIL, and you're collecting your checks, and, it's and you're, it's sunk in a little bit more, and you're excited to do big things, and you show up to practice, and then after working your tail off, you're number 2 on the depth chart.
Yep.
You're a little sensitive. You're a little in the feels, and then all of a sudden you get that feeling of, I don't really feel like I'm getting the shake that I was promised, where I thought that I was going to have, and interpretation is in each one of our hands. And so you get that call right in a kind of sensitive moment where you're a little frustrated with your current program. That's why people are frustrated right now.
Right. And being I disagree with you, it is tampering thing. That's exactly what Matt Rule said. Like that's like verbatim. He said that it's there, people are tampering and seeing, and you say scripted plays, cool. Those defensive players aren't doing scripted plays. that second or third string edge that's flying around there, and you're like, ooh, he's got potential. He ain't gonna play this year because he's still super raw. School's looking at that saying, hey, I got a job. I'll start you. You interested in getting to that spring portal? Now, once they abolish the spring portal, which I expect to happen once the settlement comes down, sounds like the settlement's not going to happen until June. June 1st, I think, is the guideline that was just recently sent out. But once there's no spring portal, I think everybody goes back to their standard spring games. Because, and hey, I mean, Ben, you can say that, but I don't agree. They still produce some players. I mean, they've had Ndamukong Suh type players over the years. People will try to poach a player if they see that he's good enough. The question is, what school's desperate enough? And thing is, it could be smaller schools. Smaller schools are starting to do the poaching stuff. They're also doing a lot of the tampering. A lot of small schools. Because like I said before, they are throwing out their entire budget for one dude. Especially if they can get a big name player that's from their state. It's happening. It's happening a lot more than you think, man. That's where the conversation is. But anyway, I don't think Oklahoma. See, Topher, tell him. I'd poach Cortez Mills. He's good. And they've been paying a lot for wide receivers to get around Dylan Raiola. But no, I don't think anybody eliminates the spring game indefinitely. I think they come back. But I do think that a lot of schools are like, I don't want my third string dude, who I plan on playing the most during spring game, to be gawked over by people at smaller schools that have the budget now to go throw money at them.
No, and again, it's not that Georgia is going to come after, a Nebraska player. It's Indiana might come after, Purdue might come after, and it might be a guy that was number 2. Like they chose Nebraska over maybe Minnesota, and he was promised, hey, listen, we're trying to do something big. We see you as a starter here. In their head, they heard you're going to be a starter here, and so. Now all of a sudden Minnesota says, we got 3 defensive tackles. We could really use you. And so, yeah, it's just that's where a lot of these coaches are. I think that the spring games, it's a little bit of a slap in the face if you try to cancel Oklahoma's after what Oklahoma fans did Brent's first year, and selling out the entire stadium for spring game, and then to hear like some third-rate country artist or something like that. Who was it back? Oh, I can't remember. I don't want to bring up bad memories, but the spring game is. We know what this is. This is a chance for fans to kind of get out, a preview. This is their kind of the doping up in the middle of spring. Summer you can get distracted with holidays and summer break and vacation and everything, and then you get football. And so spring game's kind of that middle ground between end of the season and the beginning of the new season, and fans need it. And so you're going to have to put something together to where you can have fans out. And I'm not going to lie, I've actually sent Josie a couple of ideas on just some stuff. And so I think that OU is going to continue to do something, but it's if it gets canceled, it's understandable.
Yeah, and Benji, I told you, I was mentioning it to you, they're looking at the potential more than anything when it comes to like the tampering component of it. If they turn it up in the spring and like, okay, there's probably some potential there. I wonder, if his size, the measurables, because at the same time, it's no different than what you look at when it comes to high school, right? A lot of these kids in high school are so darn dominant, but it's high school. They're playing against kids that they're going to dominate against, and you get them to against the top 1%. At the collegiate level, then it's a different story. And then, the next 1% at the NFL. But a lot of these schools are looking at they're like, no, they're looking at our third string dudes. They're seeing that, they're in the weight room. They look good. And they're like, yeah, I could start you. I could start you instead of you sitting on the bench. It's not like it used to be where like Alabama would stack dudes behind dudes because they wanted to play for Nick Saban type deal. It's nowadays dudes are like, I would like to go find a way to play day one. that is, or opportunity to. And you're seeing more freshmen. Hell, wide receivers probably the one that terrifies me the most when it comes to that, when it comes to tampering. I mean, you saw Jeremiah Smith, you saw Cam Coleman, you saw Ryan Williams. Not saying anybody else is really like them, but schools will say that a kid is like them to convince them to come play for them.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe people will bump their gums about some random ish, but my point is, I don't think that Oklahoma cancels theirs. I do think the Sooners will have an event for the fans. That way, it's not that it doesn't look like they bailed on everything. So, anywho, let's get up out of here. Final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, my final thought on that, we'll go with final thought overall is, why just add something else that you got to worry about? And that's kind of what it all comes down to, because even if somebody does ring up a call, I'm not saying that I know of this for a fact, but you know what? If you're an Auburn and you can ring up, the backup defensive tackle at OU just to cause some havoc for them, wouldn't you? Again, if you're willing to poison trees, aren't you willing to to make a phone call to try to start tampering with some guys? And it's the weirdness is going to continue to. We're going to get new weirdness with NIL and college football probably over the next 18 months, and then I think we start seeing some stuff kind of slowly start settling in. But it's ready for it. We got to get some football in our veins. Everybody's gonna be dying for that first spring practice report. And, because we haven't heard from Brent Venables in a long time. We haven't heard from, Ben Arbuckle, John Mateer. There's a lot of conversations that, what does it look like the first time that somebody asked Joe John Finley a question? Does somebody have the taters to say, Joe John, as you're, being demoted back down to just the tight ends coach, what did you learn as an offensive coordinator? That's going to be. Those are some interesting things I'd like to hear, and just kind of hear the thoughts around the team. You can hear some stuff when Brent's speaking. You read between the lines or whatever, but he's going to be excited about this defense. He's going to be super engaged and ready to really take this defense to a new level this year. But I'm excited to hear kind of him talk about how Mateer and Arbuckle and some of the transfers have fit into this team, and just kind of see what his countenance looks like as he's talking about it.
No, I agree.
Jay,
huh?
Before you go into that, and got to shout out to the Diamond Sports, bro. Undefeated between the ladies and men. 30-0. Stevie, thank you for reminding me, because it didn't start out the season that way, but the ladies are back on top, right where they should be. They are, what was it yesterday? They were up 11-0 in the third inning against maybe Marshall. I can't remember who the sacrifice was, but this team's balling. Landry goes out there, throws a perfect game. Her first outing. You're seeing a lot of the new faces really starting to contribute, and some of the younger Pickering, is starting to kind of swing it again. So man, this is and then the baseball guys, they haven't really played very many people yet until this past weekend. They got Virginia and was it Oregon State?
That was last weekend. This past weekend, they had a 3-game series versus Cal Northridge.
Cal State Fullerton, I think.
Yeah, Cal State Fullerton. Cal State Fullerton. My bad. Yes.
I played them way back when too, but it's undefeated. That is pretty much all you can do is go undefeated.
Yep. Yeah, you can't beat that. 30-0 on the Diamond Sports. You cannot beat that at all. That's freaking huge.
All the sports that we have at OU, we don't have any other sports, so we don't need to.
Yeah, I don't know of any other sports at all. Like there's no other sports that actually exist. I do. And also women's basketball, just the way they're playing now, they had a win today, and they should now be guaranteed to host a regionals in the NCAA tournament. So first week of the tourney, that should be at Lloyd Noble for the women, because that's how women's sports do it. The first two weekends are at host site, regional sites based upon, the top 16 teams in the country. And then from there, they'll go into the, Sweet 16 and all that into the Final Four. And it looks like our women will be hosting because they've been kicking butt, taking names, beating Bama. Shout out to that. Men, I mean, they keep grr and hurting everybody's soul with that loss to Ole Miss. But the way it sounds, still a good chance they're gonna make the tournament just because of because they got 5 quad 1 wins, which is one of the on the higher end for people rated as low as they are. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up. Topher, I will have a Future Freaks video out this week. I'm actually compiled the list. Shout out to him too, man. As not only a mod for the channel in the Discord, the dude, like, as it pops up and all of the public stuff populates, the man's got them people in the cord, in the threads that we have for the visit list. So I got a long list of people that are visiting. So all I got to do is grab all these names. And we'll have a list, who they are, what, year they are, and all of that jazz, so that we can talk about that. But thank y'all for pulling up. Hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, rate us, review us, give us 5. And Coop and I will chop it up with y'all maybe sometime this week. Actually, the presser is Wednesday. We may go ahead and go live Wednesday evening to after coaching and talk about it. So, all right. Thanks.